The story begins with Yuya, sitting in front of the three musketeers who are questioning him about his father. All of them have scars from talking back to their moms, showing that they are not to be messed with. Yuya replies that he doesn't know as he just got home earlier and gives them a letter he found on the table. After reading what's written inside, he ends up tearing it apart, cursing his dad for making a trip to the milk shop. Not only that, but he's more furious at him for leaving his son behind all alone. This reminds Yuya that his father always used to say that one never knows what might happen in life. In hopes of making profit, he always used to jump on the latest trends, which left him broke with a ton of debt. On top of that, Yuya's father was dearly loved by his mother, even though she was known as the neighborhood baddie. Curious, Yuya once asked why she married such a loser, to which his mother replied that it was nice for her to see a failure trying his best just to fail again. This made Yuya realize that his mother was beyond help, and even though he looks up to those who work hard, his father was a different specimen. However, he feels responsible as well for not talking to them about it. In the end, he asks Takashi how much his father borrowed from him, and Takashi, realizing that there's no point getting angry at Yuya, replies that it's about 30 million. Apparently, his father kept borrowing money to pay back the money he borrowed, causing the department to increase over time. Apparently, Yuya is not really scared of Takashi as he has known him since he was young. While Takashi looks like a filler Yakuza from a 90s movie, he's like an older brother to Yuya. Nonetheless, 30 million is a lot, and Yuya's saving is nothing compared to that amount. Following that, Takashi can't believe that his father ran away abroad and left the rest up to his lawyers. Yuya also remembers when he came home and saw the letter where his dad reassured him that they are going abroad and that everything will be taken care of by his lawyer. Furthermore, Takashi mentions that Yuya becoming a respectable human being is a miracle when he was given birth by such a couple and wonders if it's thanks to him, to which Yuya agrees. After that, Yuya asks what he's going to do now, to which Takashi replies that his boss won't take it lying down this time, and having no other choice, he might have to take Yuya with him. Yuya figures that he might have to deal with his father's debt by playing Minecraft in real life, making him think that it's all over now. However, Takashi reassures Yuya that he will persuade his boss to have him under his wing and will do everything in his power to make sure Yuya gets to live a proper life. The others agree with Takashi, telling Yuya not to become like them and live a normal life. With that being said, Takashi suggests they get going when suddenly, someone starts spamming the doorbell. Yuya hurries to open the door and finds the busty goth girl named Keed standing outside. She lets Yuya know that she's there to help him, but he's too lost staring at her long black hair, perfectly shaped eyes, and a face card so brutal, it gives LeBron James some competition. There's not a single student in his school that doesn't know Keed, as she's a beauty who was chosen as the prettiest schoolgirl in Japan. However, he can't help but wonder how she knows his address, as they have never spoken to each other. Eventually, she asks Yuya what's wrong, as his face is all red, and wondering if he has a fever. She ends up checking it herself, causing him to get even more red. In the end, she concludes that he's a bit feverish and suggests going to the hospital, but Yuya reassures her that he's fine and questions why she came to his house. This makes Keed ask if she can come into his house, but Yuya decides to politely decline, aware of the bear-sized men inside, whose gazes alone are enough to make her faint. Before he gets a chance to say something, Takashi ends up appearing in front of them, asking Yuya to make Keed leave. Yuya begins to panic as he was going to handle it on his own when suddenly, one of Takashi's men ends up recognizing Keed, commenting on how she's even hotter in person. This makes Takashi question if they know that girl, and they let him know that Keed was chosen as the prettiest schoolgirl in Japan. Keed then tells Takashi that she wanted to speak to him and calls him the lieutenant of the Haratsu Syndicate. This shocks every single one of them, including Yuya, who can't understand how she knows Takashi's affiliation with the syndicate. Before long, Takashi begins to get furious, forcing Yuya to remind him not to make scary faces, as he always used to scare the kids with that ogre-resembling face. However, Takashi lets Yuya know that it's different this time and asks Keed how she knows who he is. Keed smiles and, after introducing herself, says that she doesn't mind him not remembering her, as he would have forgotten her right away. Enraged, Takashi asks if she takes him for a fool, and Keed replies by calling him a simple-minded baboon for scaring her with an intimidating act. But she quickly takes her statement back, saying that it would be rude to the primates by comparing them to him. At this point, Yuya can't figure out why she's roasting him with a smile on her face. Soon after, Takashi begins laughing and lets Keed know that she would have been severely punished if she weren't someone Yuya knew. While he decides to give Keed a pass for now, Yuya is aware that Takashi is not as tough as he looks. Seeing his expressions makes Takashi ask Yuya if he is taking him for a fool too, causing Yuya to wonder if it showed on his face. Nonetheless, Takashi tells Keed that she hasn't answered his question and once again asks who she is. Keed replies, saying the name Hitotsuba Yuikairu and that it should sound familiar to him. Sweat starts dripping down Takashi's face, and he asks Keed if the chief of the National Police Agency is her father. However, Keed disagrees, telling Takashi that it's her uncle, but he dotes her the same way her father does so if she were to ask him for a favor. He'd even abuse his authority to make it happen. When Takashi asks what she intends to do with them, Keed asks him to never lay his hands on Yuya and agrees to pay the whole debt at a later date. Now, Yuuya is starting to get even more confused as he can't figure out if her uncle is a big shot in the police agency and if she's intending to pay off his debt. Just then, another person arrives, telling Keed not to go ahead and introduces herself as Sakurako, Keed's mother, who also turns out to be a lawyer. Following that, Sakurako tells Takashi that he seems to have gotten himself into quite the risky business. Meanwhile, Yuuya realizes how Sakurako's looks gentle, but her voice is sharp as a sword. It is as if no one could escape from the hidden sword, and even though Yuuya is not her target, he can feel that crushing sense of oppression. Takashi asks what's that supposed to mean and explains that he's only trying to take back what they have lent. Yuuya starts to notice that Takashi's regained his composure, but quickly realizes that he's only putting up a bold front. Sakurako lets him know that the money-lending business he is in is pretty much illegal, to which Takashi replies that if he were to get scared from big talks, he wouldn't be in this business in the first place. After taking a short pause, Sakurako begins imitating Takashi's daughter, saying that he has such a cute daughter. Furthermore, she mentions that Takashi always gives her daughter a kiss on the cheek while giving his wife on the lips, along with the fact that it's a bit daring to do so much in front of his daughter. Keed also adds, wondering what his daughter will grow up thinking if he keeps kissing in front of her. At this point, Yuuya figures out that this mother-daughter duo is pretty scary. However, they don't stop and mention the fact that Takashi has described his occupation as a typical salaryman to his wife, causing Takashi to argue that this has nothing to do with his wife or kid. Sakurako agrees, saying that the debt left behind is for his father to pay and Yuuya is not responsible for it. However, what Yuuya believes is that he should take care of the trouble his parents caused, and that he really looks up to Takashi as if he's his actual brother. Sakurako further mentions that this might not sit well with Takashi's boss and suggests making a deal. After reading the letter she handed to him, Takashi gets shocked and questions if she's in her right mind, wondering if Sakurako is really a lawyer, and she agrees, telling him that she's an ordinary lawyer with a rich employer. Eventually, Takashi decides to agree to her terms and promises never to lay a hand on Yuuya. However, Yuuya, not knowing what's going on, is still confused if the contents of that envelope are going to pay off his 30 million yen debt. With that being said, Sakurako mentions that it's now confirmed that the debt is fully paid, while all Yuuya can think of is if his father knows Sakurako as well. Takashi agrees, saying that the amount has been paid and tells Yuuya that he's glad as now he can live a straight and honest life. Yuuya agrees but asks Takashi about the situation as he's having trouble following the conversation. Just then, Keed grabs his hands and promises to explain the situation later, reassuring him that there's not a single demerit for him. Sakurako agrees, suggesting letting the youngsters talk it out and invites Takashi to have some tea with her, but he refuses, saying that it will bring him nothing but trouble. Before he leaves, Takashi tells Yuuya that this is the end of their relationship, asking him to take care, even though Takashi tries to act tough. Yuuya already knows where he lives, and his wife even invited Yuuya to their home the other day. Simultaneously, Sakurako tells Keed that she'll let her handle the rest, and before walking out, apologizes to Yuuya for startling him, mentioning that his father told her to completely get rid of his debt. Even though things won't be the same as before, he can still live a normal life. After Sakurako leaves, Yuuya notices that Keed is shaking harder than the ground when your mother falls. But at first, she tries to play it cool, only to later reveal how nerve-wracking it was for her to confront those scary men. Realizing that she was indeed scared of Takashi, Yuuya gently holds her hand and asks her to rest in the living room while he makes some tea. Keed agrees and mentions that even though the debt is paid, there's a condition. Before Yuuya can even ask anything, Keed lets him know that he has to live with her from now on. Yuuya instantly agrees, only to later realize what she said and how messed up it sounds. Not only that, but he is sure that all the degenerates of his school would tear his limbs apart. She then agrees to explain everything in detail, suggesting going to the living room. This makes Yuuya think about how she called him with a perfect smile, but the only flaw was her legs trembling with fear. After they arrive in the living room, Keed mentions that everything can be summarized in a few words and lets him know that he has to become her property. Even though Yuuya understands what she said, he confronts her for not explaining anything in detail, to which Keed replies that she thought a long explanation would be pointless. However, Yuuya argues that it's not good enough and tells her not to treat him like a pet she just bought. To his surprise, she seems to like the word pet and lets Yuuya know that he will be her pet from today onwards. This makes him figure that she has no intention of explaining anything and completely ignores what he says. Not only that, but she's chuckling while blushing as she's lost in her own fantasy. Eventually, she apologizes, saying that she was having a bit too much fun and asks Yuuya where they left off their conversation. After being reminded that they were talking about him becoming Keed's property, she explains that it's because his father came begging in tears to her mother. Turns out his father and Keed's mother went to the same school, but lost contact after they graduated. That is until a month ago, he contacted Keed's mother and asked for her help. At first, Sakurako was going to refuse, as no matter how good their relationship was, it was his own actions that put him in that situation. Hearing this makes Yuuya a bit frustrated, and he makes up his mind to beat his pops the moment he returns home. Furthermore, Keed mentions that his dad told her mother to at least save his son, adding the fact that Yuuya did nothing wrong and that he doesn't want to ruin his future. But still, Sakurako had no reason to agree, and if anything, this made her even more furious. Yuuya figures that this must be the case as to Sakurako. He's just a random boy and the son of a Broki. Keed then adds, saying that he must be wondering why her mother decided to help, and lets him know that it is because she selfishly asked for it. However, Yuuya doesn't seem to understand this point and asks if this is somehow related to helping his father, and Keed replies that she has always been an obedient girl who never once acted selfishly. This is why her parents and grandparents were overjoyed after she asked for something selfish for the first time. While Yuuya thinks how her parents must lack brain cells to get overjoyed over their daughter being selfish, Keed lets him know that she had two requests. The first one was to help Yuuya, and as he had done nothing wrong, while she doesn't really seem to care about his parents. Even though Yuuya has his doubts, he is really happy at the same time over the fact that someone cares for a midnight accident like him. Following that, she informs that her second request is why he became her property. Apparently, no matter what, she wishes to live with him. At this point, Yuuya gives up as he understands it even less now and asks why she told her parents that she wanted to live with him while skipping steps like confessing and proposing. Keed replies that it's because she wants to be with him, and this statement turns out to be a little more than Yuuya could handle, as he is well aware that these kinds of words coming from a goth mommy like Keed could bring any man down. Nonetheless, Keed continues and tells Yuuya that everyone was excited over her first love, and while her father prepared the check, her mother contacted his father. Afterward, she hands him an envelope, and seeing that it's a written pledge, Yuuya begins reading. Apparently, it's from his parents who approve of Yuuya living with Keed, along with approving Yuuya to be registered and adopted into Keed's household after he turns 18. Not only that, but after the commencement of the cohabitation, his parents will be banned from contacting Yuuya ever again. At this point, Yuuya can't believe that not only he'll be living with Keed, but after graduating, they'll be getting married as well. Furthermore, even his parents approved of this as it's been properly signed by the both of them. After he's done reading, Keed tells him not to worry as she'll be becoming his sugar mommy, but if he starts feeling bad for her, Yuuya will be allowed to work at her father's side and eventually become the president of the Hitotsuba group. At this point, Yuuya can believe that Keed's parents are letting her marry a waste of space like him, and even considering making him the next company president. Following that, Keed lets him know that both their parents have given their approval, saying that Yuuya does not have the right to refuse and asking if he knows what will happen if he tries to resist. However, Yuuya seems to have a general idea and figures that he might be forced to work like a slave or be sent underground, never to see the light of the day ever again. In the end, Keed explains that he'll be forced to become her exclusive butler for the rest of his life, and if he becomes a butler, kissing Keed or clapping her would be out of the question. But in Yuuya's eyes, this is a different kind of hell for him, and not only that, but he is also shocked to hear such words coming out of her mouth. Additionally, he can tell that Keed is forcing herself given how red she is. Eventually, he suggests the idea of a forbidden love between a lady and her butler, but gets told that it's not allowed as according to Keed. The idea of pure love sounds much better. Seeing her expressions reminds Yuuya that even at school, Keed is a perfect, impeccable beauty like an unapproachable flower. Furthermore, this might be her real form, and if that is true, this would make Yuuya one of the few boys who knows the real Keed. Ultimately, Yuuya ends up accepting the conditions and lets her know that he wasn't trying to refuse in the first place, as this proposal is like a godsend. The fact that he gets to marry Keed is like a dream for someone like him. After saying all that, Yuuya thinks to himself that it's fine as he'd get to marry such a chick and become the next company president, thinking that it's not like he'll be lonely. Just then, Keed begins to panic and asks if he's hurting somewhere, and when he lets her know that he's perfectly fine, Keed questions the reason he's crying. This comes as a surprise to Yuuya, as he wasn't aware that he's crying and wonders why the tears aren't stopping, even though he's now free from his stupid parents. But before he can overthink this any longer, Keed ends up giving him a hug, letting him know that it's alright because she's with him and always will be. This causes Yuuya to hug her back, and she comments that he must feel lonely considering the fact that he's suddenly alone now and advises him to be just as happy from now on. With that being said, Keed tells Yuuya to get to packing, as they'll be demolishing the house. Confused, Yuuya asks if this house will be gone, to which Keed replies that a new house will be built and rented out. Furthermore, she reassures him that their love nest is fine as she already prepared it and suggests going shopping as tomorrow they have a day off. Meanwhile, Yuuya can't believe what's going on and figures that his father's blood is flowing inside him to the way he made this life-changing decision in the spur of the moment. Afterward, Keed informs him about the Hitotsuba Electrical Appliances Company, which will be celebrating its 100th anniversary this year. They don't only make appliances but venture in other areas, such as renovation services and electric vehicles. All in all, their business is expanding on a global scale, and Keed's father is the fourth generation to lead it. Later, Yuuya will be going to be following in his footsteps and gets told by Keed to be prepared. Even though Yuuya understands that he needs to be diligent every day if he needs to stand out in society, but asking a school student to become the next company president is a bit too much. Additionally, she suggests Yuuya enters a university after graduation, and when he argues that working at her father's place would be better, she lets him know that wasting time on a part-time job is useless, and he should be spending time by her father's side and learning various stuff. Apparently, the thing that's bugging him the most is that Keed is making all the decisions even though he's aware that he needs to do that. Furthermore, Keed asks him to focus on her milk balloons instead, as that way, she can see how hard-working he is and will make sure to meet every expectation no matter how freaky his fetishes might be. But the only thing she wants in return is for Yuuya to not shove his sausage anywhere else. Eventually, he agrees and asks Keed the reason she's helping him as they both don't really know each other. Keed agrees, saying that they barely talked at school before, but she has been watching him this whole time. She then mentions his after-school soccer club practice, letting him know that she saw him kicking the ball alone, even when everyone had gone home. He stayed persistent day after day, and the expression on Yuuya's face that Keed saw during this time was one he didn't used to show often. The first thing she thought was that Yuuya was different from her and could put his heart into something and give it his all. Before he knew it, Yuuya stole her attention, and from that day, she was always rooting for him and praying for his hard work to be rewarded, but sadly, her prayers were ignored just like you ignore WinRAR's subscription request. This reminds Yuuya that he always dreamt of making it to the nationals, but in the end, his team was eliminated from the tournament and his daily practice didn't bear fruit. Keed then adds that Yuuya still didn't lose hope from that defeat and was back at it the next day. This made her think of Yuuya as an amazing person for not giving in to despair, and her heart became glued to him. After hearing it all, Yuuya lets her know that he's not that splendid of a person, but whatever he says, Keed has already fallen in love with how he puts his heart into the things he does. Besides, she is prepared to take any measures to make him hers and make sure he'll only look her way. Yuuya begins thinking that even though Keed was chosen as the cutest schoolgirl, she still fell in love with a boy kicking the ball like an idiot every day. While Keed has been watching him and even fell in love, he doesn't know anything about her. And if he were asked whether he likes her or not, Yuuya is sure that his answer would be that he isn't sure right now. Following that, Yuuya tells Keed that he's happy to receive a confession from a girl like her. But he still doesn't know much about her, which is why he cannot respond to her feelings right now. To his surprise, Keed seems fine with this and mentions that it's just as expected of her first love target. Apart from her outward appearance, he doesn't know much about her, and from that answer alone, her favorability for Yuuya has skyrocketed. He agrees with her and thinks that one cannot fall in love with a person they don't know and figures that his criteria are whether he'll have fun being with them and whether they will stay with an average Joe like him. With that being said, Keed lets him know that her strategy of removing the obstacles has been a success and tells Yuuya that she will make him say that he likes her and have him give her a kiss. Not only that, but she plans to pin him down and rip his shirt off like Superman during an emergency. Hearing this statement has ruined the image of Keed Yuuya has in mind and mentions that she has quite the gap in the way she acts at school and at home. This causes Keed to point her finger at Yuuya, letting him know that everyone wears a mask and that applies to him as well. Whether it's consciously or not, the Yuuya in front of her and the Yuuya playing football are different people. Furthermore, she asks which one of her acts he thinks is her true self, and even after comparing the cute Keed at school with the freaky Keed at home, he can't draw a conclusion and mentions that it's fine to gradually understand each other. Luckily, Keed agrees with his words and says that she wants to know more about Yuuya as well. For example, the kind of food he likes and whether he lives by the motto, the bustier, the better. But before she announces all the lewd things in her mind, Yuuya tells her to stop, suggesting leaving it for later and getting to know each other a bit more first. At this point, Yuuya is exhausted due to Keed dropping a bomb when he was defenseless, and the way she says it all with a flushed face makes it even more dangerous because of her cuteness. Nonetheless, Keed says this should be enough joking around and suggests getting to pack their stuff. This makes Yuuya wonder where they will be moving to and gets told that they will be going to their love nest. Before long, Yuuya finds himself in a luxurious car, sitting next to the owner of the car who called the driver to pick them up. He can't help but notice how Keed's face has changed completely from just a while ago, but he's too embarrassed to say it out loud. Eventually, he asks Keed about the place they are headed to, and she replies that they are moving into their love nest, reassuring him that her dad made sure they got the best room. Yuuya mentions that he's not doubting her and makes sure that she's not going to call it all a lie in the end, which ends up confusing Keed, and her cute head tilt makes Yuuya give up. Furthermore, he notices that they are in the popular Bay Area and remembers that there are a lot of luxury first-class hotels nearby. He figures that it should be beyond out of place for school students to live there, causing Keed to praise him for being well-informed. This reminds Yuuya that his father was always too busy gooning over third-rate actresses, due to which he had to read up on stuff during breaks. Keed adds that if he knows this much at this stage, she's sure that he'll benefit a lot under her dad and reassures Yuuya that she believes in him. Hearing this statement makes Yuuya blush, making Keed laugh and mention how cute he looks when he's blushing. Eventually, they arrive at their destination, which turns out to be a building as tall as Yuuya's morning wood. He instantly realizes that this is one of the high-class condos he was talking about and can't believe a peasant like him will be living there with Keed. Without wasting any time, she locks arms with him and suggests going inside. Meanwhile, all Yuuya can think about is him trying his best not to faint due to Keed being so close, along with the fact that he was denied taking his own bag by the driver who didn't want to lose his job. During the elevator ride, Yuuya makes sure to glance at the baddie he'll be pumping really soon. Before long, the elevator door opens, and they arrive in the hallway that leads to their condo. With that being said, Yuuya opens the door and seeing pure luxury in front of him for the first time, he can't help but be shocked. When Keed asks if he likes it, Yuya questions if they are really going to live there, saying that she must be kidding. However, Keed replies that this is reality, but it'll be okay as she's good at cooking and will make him whatever he wants. Little does she know